Jordan Love threw 3 touchdown passes, and Keisean Nixon sealed the deal as the Green Bay Packers move into first place in the NFC North with a 28-21 win. We react to all of it live on YouTube. Let's do it.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. It was the offense that won the Green Bay Packers this football game. They scored 28 points. It certainly could have been even more, 6.5 yards per play for this offense. And they were hunting explosives from the very first play, the very first drive. They thought, they being the Packers, thought they could go up and down the field on this Bears team. And had things gone just a little different here or there, they could have. They still scored 28 points in this game. They scored 14 in the first half, 14 in the second half. Right on pace. And when this offense needed the juice, when they needed to make their plays, they did. The turning point in this game to me, not to preempt the squad show we're going to do later, came in the late second quarter. And I'm wondering why Matt LaFleur's not calling timeout late in the half. They run the ball on first down. They throw a short pass on second down. And I'm like, okay, here we go again. And then they take their shot. And Jordan Love hits Bo Melton for a touchdown that puts you up 14-3. Now, I understand the Bears come back. They do all the things that they need to do. 3rd and short. Packers catch cover 1 with a heavy blitz look, and they have the perfect play call. The perfect play call. Just a little inside slant. Not that there's an outside slant. They catch a little slant from Christian Watson, and Watson takes it to the house. It was the answer that Green Bay needed as the Bears start to make their push. And Caleb Williams, trust me, we're going to talk about the defense, but Caleb Williams makes a couple of incredible plays in the second half. And that's just like in the NFL, you're going to run up against a team where they can make some plays. But the Packers able to answer in every situation where they absolutely had to answer. And the final drive is the perfect encapsulation of that, because the Bears are coming off what our pal Coach Jags likes to call an IV drive, where it was, I think it was 17 plays, and you're 17 plays, 83 yards. They convert 5 third downs. The Packers come back 8 plays, 65 yards in 4.5 minutes. And they leave some time on the clock for the Bears, but like they've got to score on that drive. What do you want them to do? They go right down the field like a hot knife through butter, and they get what turns out to be the game-winning touchdown. This offense against that defense, as I said all week, is a mismatch. I really botched that by screwing up the pronunciation of mismatch. But we are live on YouTube, so it stays. It stays just like this Packers defense. But to me, this game was won by the offense. And if the Packers are going to win again in Chicago in 2 weeks, it's going to be this offense that does the job. because Bears fans got mad at me for saying it, but it was true when I said it. It was true on Sunday, and it's true right now. This is not a good Bears defense. If you don't turn the ball over, they cannot stop you. 6.5 yards per play, by the way, would lead the NFL right now. Like, that is elite offense. And the Packers really, if it weren't for the one Jordan Love interception, and it started with a sack and then the interception, if that doesn't happen, this game might not even come down to the final plays that it came down to, where ultimately Green Bay makes the plays that they need to make. But you look at the underlying numbers here. I mean, 6.5 yards per play versus 4.6 yards per play. 220 yards passing versus 177. In the red zone, the Bears go 2 for 4. That's the game. The Packers go 1 for 1. They create explosive plays in this game. Both teams turn the ball over. By the way, it could have been more than one turnover. We'll get to the penalties part of this, because the penalties, the officiating, oh my God. Oh my God. The officiating was a nightmare. What a nightmare. What a nightmare from this officiating crew. But Jordan Love, really outside of one throw, Jordan Love was spectacular in this game. The one throw on 3rd and long, you're trying to hit Matthew Golden up the seam, and he just short arms it. Like, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is right there in the middle of the play. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if the ball is cold and he wasn't able to layer it quite the way that he wanted. It goes right to the defender. Matthew Golden's open. If he can layer that ball, just throw it up a little bit higher. Just change the trajectory just a little bit. That ball goes exactly where you want it to go. Other than that, I thought Jordan Love was outstanding in this game. The offense overall was outstanding in this game. I understand 337 total yards. You're going to go, that's not very much. But 9 drives, that's 6.5 yards per play. That's really getting the job done. If you had 10, 11, 12 yards, this team would have had 400 yards of offense. They had over 200 at halftime. It was the defense that couldn't quite collect themselves in the moments where they could have taken down Caleb Williams, or where they couldn't quite, like Keisean Nixon comes a fingernail away from stopping a touchdown. If his hands were like, Kevin Durant's toes longer, right? KD, the famous missed 3 a couple years ago. Okay, you remember, maybe you don't. Look it up. This Packers team, I felt like for most of the game, really controlled the game. And it took out of structure plays. It took craziness for the Bears to even be in it late. It really did. I mean, Caleb Williams, and look, credit to Caleb Williams. He made some great plays. But it took Caleb Williams making some otherworldly throws just for this game to be close. And that's because the Packers offense did everything it needed to do in this game, aside from not turn the ball over. If Jordan Love just throws that ball over the defender and it gets picked off, like it's same outcome, interception. It's a 30-yard difference. Now, it's not like the Bears were able to get points off that, so it didn't matter ultimately, but it felt like if the Packers could have gotten points on that drive, a drive that they control, where Jordan Love is pinpoint, putting the ball wherever he wants, it didn't really matter. The Packers never really felt threatened in this game, because even when they got the ball with the tie game, they go right down and score. Like they were really in, and I said this on Thursday, I said this on Friday. I said this is going to be the kind of game where what happens is the Packers control it all the way, but the score doesn't ultimately reflect it, because that's just the kind of season the Bears are having. And that's true. And at 14-3, I thought, okay, well, maybe it turns out that the kind of season that the Bears are having is going to catch up with them here. And then the Bears come back and they play well. Like, they deserve some credit for the way that they fought back in this game. Caleb Williams deserves some credit for the way that he fought back in this game. Ben Johnson, I thought, called a really good game. Like, there's nothing I can say about, like, oh, the coaching, whatever. But ultimately, the Packers won this game because they have Jordan Love and the Bears have Caleb Williams. And Jordan Love was just much better than Caleb Williams in this game, even for some of the great plays that Caleb Williams made. Caleb Williams, like, you go back and you look at it, in the first half, he's 6 of 14 in this game for 32 yards. The 71 yards in the first half was the fewest yards any Ben Johnson offense that he called has ever had. 2.5 yards per play. They end with under 4.5 yards per play. This could have been a game, if the Packers had stopped stepping on rakes, that they win by double digits. And maybe next time, if they stop with the nonsense, they can do that. Now, we have to talk about the defense, because the defense, especially in the second half, did not show up the way the Packers needed them to. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Aura Frames. If you're looking for a Christmas gift this season, and you probably are at some point, Aura Frames is the move. I'm telling you, as someone who has bought multiple smart frames for people in my life, it is an incredible, meaningful, personal gift that is guaranteed to get a reaction. Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. Grandparents, parents, newlyweds, you've got friends, just got married, you've got grandparents. I hope you have grandparents. If you don't, you've got parents. I hope. If not, you've got family members that care about you. They want to see your life. They want to get the updates. You can preload pictures on Aura Frames so they can open them, and bang, your stuff is right there. It is an incredible gift. I am telling you, for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver Mat frames, named #1 by Wirecutter. Also, just happens to be my #1 place to go for reviews, by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning it at checkout. Terms and conditions do always apply. This is your opportunity to get a gift that matters to your loved ones. Take advantage. The defense did not do what you needed them to do in this game. This was an offense that was really ready to lay down. And ultimately, you hold this team 32 rushes for 138 yards. You go 138 yards, that's a lot, but 4.3 yards per carry is not exactly a problem against one of the best running offenses in the league. DeAndre Swift averaged 4.8 yards per carry, but he didn't feel like he was impacting this game down to down, play to play. Kyle Monangai, 14 for 57. That's 4.1 yards per carry. But he didn't really feel like he was impacting the game down to down, play to play. In the first half, this Packers defense had opportunities to really put the hammer down. And they didn't. Now, you had a play on the very first drive that typifies this. Xavier McKinney, free run. He gets a chance. Couldn't get it. Couldn't finish the play. Penalty anyway. Not going to work out. Now that's a bummer, right? Like those things are going to happen. But on the Bears' fourth possession, the Packers had it to 3rd and long. And Christian Watson gets called for a hands to the face penalty, a personal foul penalty, where you just don't have to do that. You just don't have to do that. We're going to talk about the penalties and the officiating and all that stuff. But like, you just don't have to do that. And then they convert 4th and 1. And then they called what I thought was a preposterous penalty on Christian Watson for some jawing back and forth. And that leads to points for the Bears. If that doesn't happen, this game is totally different. The Packers end up scoring on the next possession to make it 14-3. But if that's not a touchdown, they have to punt the ball. Look, maybe the Packers take a different tact. But still, it could have been 14-0, and that's a big damn difference. Now, on the next Bears possession, after the Packers go 3-and-out to start the second half, Caleb Williams makes a couple of unbelievable throws. But he's only able to make a couple of unbelievable throws because the Packers were not able to get the stops, the sacks that they needed to in those moments. They were in a position to create negative plays against the Bears. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. Keisean Nixon in a position in the end zone. Gets his hand on the ball. The ball goes right through his hands. Now, it's an unbelievable play by Caleb Williams. It's an unbelievable catch by Zacchaeus. But, Keisean Nixon is right there to make the play. And so this was, until the end, really a nightmare game for Keisean Nixon. A truly nightmare game for Keisean Nixon. And look, you have Micah Parsons, you have Edgerrin Cooper, you have Xavier McKinney, you have all these guys who are really, really good players. Xavier McKinney was kind of in hell in this game. Having to take on blocks and having to deal with all that nonsense. It's just not what he does. Now, in the next possession, they were able to force a field goal. Caleb hit a couple passes, but Hafley had the perfect call for coverage. The perfect play. Able to force a field goal. It was really that last Bears possession. On 3rd and 1, the Bears gashed them. The Packers were communicating they're not set. 3rd and 8. The Bears were terrified to let Caleb Williams play quarterback in this game. Terrified. The Packers won because they have Jordan Love, and the Bears lost because they have Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams made a couple nice plays, but ultimately consistency is just not there. 3rd and 8, Matt LaFleur would let Jordan Love just go. He would let him play. It's a screen, but it worked. 3rd and goal, beautiful play action play for the Bears, and they get themselves a wide open touchdown to tie this game. It's hard for me to really fault the Packers defense for that one. It's a beautiful scheme. It's a beautiful call. What am I really supposed to complain about there? At the same time, the Packers had plenty of opportunities in this game overall to make plays in the backfield that they were not unable to make. Not unlike what happened last week. Carrington Valentine has an opportunity. Jamison Williams, tackle for loss, dead to rights. The play is over. The drive is over if he makes that tackle. He misses the tackle. It turns into a touchdown. And now the game has to be more competitive than it really needs to be. That's the difference with this team right now. Is they're right here. They're really close. They're just not quite where they need to be. Now, the Bears, right now, their biggest opposition in the division. They beat the Lions twice. I don't know if you guys knew that. They beat the Lions twice. And so you get this win against the Bears. You take your lead in the NFC North. And this has been, I think you can go back and the Cardinals game might be similar, but there haven't been that many games where the Packers defense didn't play great and the Packers won. This is one of them. And there are going to be games in the playoffs where the Packers defense is not going to play great. And you need your offense to pick you up. Well, here you are. Here you are. You did it. Against a team that has thrived in the fourth quarter all year long. The Bears got their fourth quarter touchdown. They did what they need to do. The Packers come right back. And they answer. You knew this game was going to be close. I said it on the squad show. I said it on our Friday show. I think if the temperature were a little bit different, that I would pick the Packers by double digits, but I didn't. So I said, okay, this is going to be one of those. I said, you may remember, I said this game would be 27-21. What was the final score? 28-21. I said the Packers win, but they wouldn't cover. They won and they covered. I said 27-21. That would have been 6. They won by 7. That is the difference in, of course, covering versus not in a game that was the Packers favored by 6.5. And so, look, the Bears played better, certainly played better in the second half than I thought they would. But I still think this Packers team is clearly better. Again, you look at the underlying numbers. The Packers win this game, but the underlying numbers say the Packers won this game by much more than the margin that they did. The Packers go 8 of 12 on third down. 8 of 12 on third down is freaking crazy, man. 6.5 yards per play. 8.5 yards per throw. 4.5 yards per rush. This could have easily been a game that you score 30 plus. This defense is just not good enough for Green Bay. And I think Caleb Williams, you saw it. You saw the off-target throws in this game. Bears fans got mad at me when I said, look, you're gonna, have a situation where Caleb Williams, one of the reasons why he doesn't throw interceptions is because the balls are so badly placed that they go over everybody's head. That happened twice on the first drive. Simple out route, 3-step drop. He overthrows his receiver by 5 yards. Third down. He overthrows his receiver, who, by the way, like if he makes a perfect throw, is open. If he makes a 50% more accurate throw, it's an interception. But because it was such a bad throw, it was an incompletion. I think the Packers are going to win in Chicago. I think they're going to win this division. And I'm not really that concerned about it. Let's talk about some of the issues that I did have, though, with the officiating, and the penalties have to get cleaned up. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994 with 48 teams for the first time ever. It's going to be massive, but let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track prices in real time, get alerts when the great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power in your hands and makes going to the World Cup a realistic option instead of impossible. Plus, the seat view is a game changer. You can see the pictures of the seats that you're going to buy, what the pitch is going to look like before you buy them. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, every concert, every game with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. I didn't get a chance to do it, but had I been on my stuff after the Bears scored, I would have bet the Packers to win the game. Certainly, probably would have been minus odds, but I would have bet the Packers to cover, which probably would have been plus odds at that point in the game. Live betting is the best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. I thought the Packers were going to score a touchdown on that drive. I really believe that. I didn't think they were going to play for the field goal. I thought they were going to play for the touchdown, which is exactly what they did. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your bet on NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and listen, so can you. So, this game opened with a preposterous call on the Bears' second drive. It's a deep pass to Colston Loveland. The Packers end up with the ball at the end. Then the ball pops out. And it's like, okay, Evan Williams clearly has the ball. Then the ball pops out. There's a scramble for the ball, and they call the play, for whatever reason, they call the play a catch, and then the Packers review it, and it turns into an incompletion, even though we didn't see a single angle, not one angle, that showed the ball hitting the ground. We did not see a single angle where that's the case. Like, the officiating in this game was a disaster. It was a disaster. And I'm not just talking about like in the Packers' favor. I just thought overall, I didn't understand almost anything that was being called at any given time. There was the Musgrave play. How could you overturn that call? What angle did you see that made you believe that that ball hit the ground? He reaches his arms out. He brings it in. Yes, the ball hits the ground, but it doesn't move. That's what you need to see. You need to see the ball hit the ground and move. When Luke Musgrave rolls over, the ball never moves. When he's holding the ball as he goes to the ground, the ball doesn't move. It hits the ground. It doesn't move. So explain to me how that's an incomplete pass. And then I mentioned the penalties against Keisean Nixon. The first one on the drive where the Bears got the field goal. Just stupid. Just stupid. You don't need to do that. And Keisean Nixon, look, Keisean plays on the line. And he's a solid player who has exceeded all my expectations. This is not about my priors anymore. I don't care about those. It's not important. I didn't think he was ever going to be a starting caliber player, but that's because we never saw him be a starting caliber player. Like, this is not my fault that I didn't think that. We never saw it. And here he is. He's a starting caliber player. But the second penalty, we never saw a good look. Now, Derek Carraher from Packer Report, he was trying to tell me, look, there's an angle that shows Keisean Nixon did a stupid thing and put his hands on someone's face. I never saw it. I never saw it. So I can only go by what my eyes see. And what my eyes saw was Luther Burden push Keisean Nixon in the throat. I'm not even going to say punch, but push Keisean Nixon in the throat. Nixon retaliates. And then the penalty gets thrown. What are we doing? Like, Luther Burden started with Carrington Valentine. And then he starts jawing with someone else, pushes them in the throat, and Keisean Nixon fights back, and he gets called. The ref was on it the whole way. The ref watched the whole thing. What are we doing? What are we talking about? It's ridiculous. So this was, in part, one of the reasons why this game was not further apart than it ended up being. Is there were 3 at least atrocious calls that were hugely impactful on Green Bay. The one play that should have been, like, it's not just the play. Like, the Packers ultimately get the stop after the Colston Loveland non-call or whatever the call was. Caleb Williams finishes that drive 0 for 5 to start the game. But the Packers, that's a huge play momentum-wise. Like, if you, like, the Bears get the interception and they come right out and turn the ball back over, that would have been a huge play. It wasn't. Then the Packers, they get their opportunity. They score. Okay, awesome. Then they get their opportunity. And it's like, what is the call exactly? Like, they get this huge play. And it doesn't, sorry, that was before the touchdown. The touchdown comes right after. They get this huge play to Christian Watson on a slant. Then they get Luke Musgrave on a 34-yard play. And I still have not seen the angle. Someone, like, in order to overturn this play, the officials only get to see everything that Fox has. So I assume that at some point, Fox is going to find the angle the Bears used. Like, they're involved in the review. The guys in the truck are sending the replays to the officials. And we never get to see the angle that they use to determine the ball hit the ground. It was ruled a catch, which means on the field, they thought the ball didn't hit the ground. Evan Williams ends up with the ball. You can see it on the replay. He punches the ball out. He has the ball. He rips it away. He ends up on the ground. He has the ball, and then the ball gets knocked out. It should have been either interception or fumble and Packers ball. That's a huge play to botch. And then on the Bears scoring drive, you call this ridiculous penalty. I just don't understand. So, look, the Packers outplayed the Bears. Like, the Packers needed the game-winning interception from Keisean Nixon, which, by the way, he had earned. That penalty was nonsense. That interception or near interception that turned into a touchdown goes right through his hands. He was due. He earned that. The Packers, by the way, had that play blanketed. Like, that play had no shot to go, even if Caleb tries to run. Edgerrin Cooper's right there. They had multiple Packers defenders right there. Like, they had that play gloved up. But they won this game by more than the 7 and the final drive interception suggests. And it was frankly officiating, and then their own penalties, their own self-inflicted penalties. I mentioned the Aaron Banks hand to the face, the sack from Jordan Love. There were a couple key penalties, some deserved, some not, that made this game closer than it was. The ultimate outcome is the Packers win. They're in the control of the division, the clear control of the division, 9-3-1. They win the home game. They've got to go to Denver next week, where they are favorites to play on the road against Denver. And then they get the Bears in Chicago, where I expect, if the officials play a clean game, the Packers will win. And they will win the NFC North. And I think they still have an outside shot. I like the Ravens. Guys, the Ravens look like dog doo-doo in this game. The Packers can win out and still steal the 1 seed. Keep an eye on that. So follow me on the socials. For those of you watching on YouTube, almost 2,000 of you, Locked On Packers Squad Show coming your way. Let's do this. Otherwise, we'll be back tomorrow talking Packers, Broncos, after the Packers beat the Bears. You love to see it. Follow me on the socials. Follow the podcast on the socials. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube so you can stay locked on Packers.